I wasn't supposed to be there. The sign outside the bridal suite said, "Do not disturb." But habit dies hard when you've spent most of your life making sure everyone else has what they need. I'd promised to bring Clara a glass of water before her. Makeup trial, nothing more. My hand was already halfway to the door when I heard it. "Once the estate money clears, I'm gone. He won't even see it coming." The words slid through the crack like cold air. I froze. For a second, I thought I'd misheard, that the years had finally dulled my ears. But then she laughed, light, effortless, practiced. "I told you, Mark, it worked in Savannah too. Some men just want to be fooled." Inside came the soft rustle of satin and a clink of glass. I pictured her standing before the mirror, phone on speaker, lips painted this same blush she'd chosen for her bridesmaids. My heart thudded once, hard enough to sting. I stepped back from the door, clutching the glass so tightly my fingers ached. Clara had been in our lives barely a year. Polite, polished, a shimmer of sweetness wrapped around something I couldn't name. My son Owen saw none of it. He'd fallen for her the way sunlight falls through stained glass, blind to what it hides. I turned down the hall, past the vase of white lilies I'd arranged that morning, past the sign-in table where Mrs. Eleanor Nash was written in looping script. The corridor smelled faintly of perfume and powder, too sweet. Almost cloying. By the time I reached the garden door, my pulse had steadied. I didn't cry. Not yet. I stepped outside into air that smelled of damp grass and early roses and watched a pair of gardeners adjust the trellis arch, where my son would stand tomorrow. They smiled. I smiled back. My face knew how. That night I sat at my kitchen table with the lamp turned low. The rest of the house was dark. Owen had stayed at the hotel. Tradition, Clara said, no seeing the bride before the wedding. I was alone with the ticking clock and the faint buzz of the refrigerator. I replayed every word I'd heard until they stopped sounding like words at all, just shapes of betrayal. When my phone lit up, it wasn't Owen. It was the attorney, Margot Hartley. I'd worked with her since my husband's death. When the estate first needed settling, Margot, I whispered after the beep, "Pause the transfer. The Nash trusts everything. Do not finalize until you hear from me." I hung up before I could lose my nerve. My hands trembled, not from fear, but clarity. I wasn't going to shout or burst into the sweet, demanding truth. I learned years ago that silence is sharper than accusation. You wait. You watch. You act when no one expects you to. Sleep never came. By midnight, the lamplight had carved tired shadows under my eyes. I opened the folder Clara had given me the week before. Just routine paperwork, she'd said, smiling that honeyed smile. The language was slick, heavy with joint ownership. Expedited approval, marital consolidation. She'd wanted Owen's signature on every page at the bottom of one document. Her neat initials. CV. I took photos of everything. Then I slid the papers back into the folder, sealed it, and locked it in my desk. The key went behind the framed photo of my husband, Arthur, smiling with a fishing rod and the patience of a man who believed goodness could outlast deceit. By dawn, I was at my friend Lila's kitchen counter. Both of us still in our nightgowns. Lila had been a nurse with me for 30 years. Retirement hadn't softened her edge. When I told her what I'd heard, she didn't gasp or clutch pearls. She just said, "Then we find out who this woman really is." Lila's niece worked for a private investigations office in Charleston. Discreet, thorough. By noon, I had a text message waiting to prior marriages under the name Clara May Vincent. First, husbands filed bankruptcy after separation. Second, domestic dispute settled quietly. No children, no stable employment, a trail of ruin. It's polished clean each time. I stared at the message until the letters blurred. At 5 that evening, the rehearsal dinner began. Long tables under string lights, laughter, toasts, the scent of lemon chicken and champagne. Clara glided between guests like a practiced hostess, her hand occasionally resting on her stomach 3 months along. She said, Owen's smile never wavered. When someone asked about baby names, Clara laughed lightly. "Oh, we've picked a few. Michael likes Silas, but I'm still torn. I watched Owen blink. I like Silas, he said, amused. She paused only a second, but I saw it. The flicker of panic before the mask returned. Right? She said quickly. Of course you do, laughter resumed, the moment forgotten. Not by me, later that night after the guests had gone and the tables were half cleared. I saw her phone buzzing on the counter. M. Roth flashed on the screen again and again. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. I took a single photo, the name and time clear, then turned off the kitchen light. Upstairs, alone in my room, I labeled the image backup_1.jpg and saved it to my encrypted drive. My hands shook. But not from guilt. Morning came golden bright. I arrived at the venue an hour early under the pretense of checking flowers. The bridal suite was empty. The air smelled faintly of hairspray and lilies. From my purse, I took a small digital recorder. Matte black, voice activated. It fit neatly under the armchair cushion beside the vanity. The suite's high ceilings would catch every word. Then I left, walking slowly down the hall, my reflection following me in each framed mirror like a silent accomplice. At noon, I sat in my car under a magnolia tree. Windows rolled up, listening. The recording began with static, then laughter. He still thinks the baby's his. Bless his sweetheart. A pause. A man's voice, muffled but clear enough. You're sure the funds cleared this week? As soon as he signs the last document. Then I'm gone. My stomach turned to ice. When the recording ended, I replayed it twice, slower. Then I saved a file to a USB drive, labeling it the wedding.mp3. Inside the hall, a young technician was adjusting the microphones. I approached quietly. Could you help me with something small for the ceremony? I asked. He smiled, polite. Sure thing, ma'am. I handed him the USB. There's a short clip on here. I'd like it played when I give you a signal. He hesitated. What kind of signal? I touched the silver locket at my throat. When I touch this twice? He frowned. Does the couple, they will, I said softly. A folded check slipped into his palm, ended the questions. Guests began to arrive. Bright colors, brighter laughter. The garden looked like a painting, petals, sunlight, expectation. I found a seat near the aisle. Clara appeared in white lace, moving like she'd been born for it. Owen stood waiting, eyes full of hope, so pure it hurt to look at. The officiant smiled. We gathered today to celebrate. I touched the locket twice. A faint crackle filled the air. Then Clara's voice poured through the speakers. He still thinks the baby's his. Bless his sweetheart. As soon as he signs the papers, gasps. A chair scraped. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Clara froze, my dial, bouquet trembling. No, she said, voice small. That's not someone. Owen's expression shattered. He took one step back, another. The officiant lowered his book. Silence, except for a distant bird calling somewhere beyond the garden wall. Clara turned, stumbled, nearly fell. Security moved instinctively. Guests whispered. The world tilted. I stayed seated. The truth had played. That was enough. By dusk, the garden was empty. The veil lay in the grass near the arch, one edge singed by a candle. The chairs were half-toppled. My phone buzzed once. Margot, transfer halted. No legal ties. You're clear. I slipped the phone back into my purse and exhaled slowly. The first real breath of the day. Somewhere beyond the hedges, a violinist practiced a soft, mournful tune. I walked to my car without looking back. 3 days later, Owen appeared on my porch. The sun was low, turning everything gold. I was trimming the rosemary bush. He stopped at the bottom step. His voice was raw. You knew. I set the shears down. Yes. How long? Long enough. He stared at the ground, jaw tight. Why didn't you tell me? Because you wouldn't have believed me, I said quietly. You had to see her truth yourself. I didn't argue. He sank onto the step beside me, elbows on knees, face in his hands. She lied about everything, he murmured. Yes, the baby. I shook my head once. She wanted your name, not your child. Silence stretched between us, heavy but clean. Finally, he said, I almost signed the papers. But you didn't, I said. That's what matters. We sat until the light faded and the first crickets began. The rosemary scent rose sharp and alive around us when he left that night. He said only, "Thank you, Mom," after the door closed. I stood in the quiet kitchen, staring at the space his shadow had filled. I poured myself a cup of tea, added honey, and let the steam blur my reflection in the window outside. The garden waited unbroken. The weeks after the wedding felt hollow, like sound after thunder. Owen stopped answering friends. The gifts were boxed in the garage, ribbons still perfect. I left him space called once, sent soup twice, but grief for what might have been is a private sickness. Then one morning the phone rang. Mrs. Nash. A woman's voice, brisk but kind. Detective Armitage, Charleston PD. We thought you should know. A woman using the name Clara Vincent tried to access a joint account registered to the Nash Trust. Your attorney flagged it. I thanked her, hung up, and sat perfectly still. So it wasn't finished after all. I opened the drawer of my desk. The USB from the wedding lay where I'd left it, beside the folder of unsigned documents. I'd thought about destroying both closure, but something in me said, wait. That evening I drove to Owen's house. He answered in a t-shirt, eyes shadowed. She's trying again, I said. He rubbed his face. Of course she is. There'll be an investigation. Margot's handling it. He nodded slowly. You always said she'd come back once the money didn't. We sat on the porch steps, quiet. The smell of cut grass rose from the yard. She's dangerous, Mom. She's desperate, I corrected. Desperate people are predictable. A month passed before we heard again. A letter arrived, no return address. Inside, a single photograph. Clara on a California beach. Sunglasses, wind in her hair. On the back, 3 words in her looping hand, I'll regret it. Owen wanted to burn it. I slipped it into an envelope marked evidence. That night, I dreamed of the wedding again. The hush after the speakers went silent, the sound of truth breaking skin. I woke before dawn, heart steady, and made coffee strong enough to silence ghosts. Spring turned to summer. The garden flourished. Owen came by more often. Sometimes we talked, sometimes not. Healing doesn't announce itself, it just appears one morning. I think when you realize you can breathe without remembering to. One afternoon, as I was pruning the rosemary, a car I didn't know turned into the drive. A woman stepped out, Detective Armitage again, folder in hand. Mrs. Nash, she said. We located Ms. Vincent. She's been charged with identity fraud and attempted embezzlement. She took plea arrangements. She'll be leaving the state under supervision. I thought you should hear it from me. I nodded. Relief didn't feel like victory. It felt like finally exhaling. When she left, I found Owen in the kitchen making tea. It's over, I said. He didn't ask how I knew. He just poured me a cup and said, good. We drank in silence. Outside, wind moved through the rosemary. Silver leaves flashing like small coins. Later that night, I opened the window and listened to the crickets. The veil from the ruined wedding still hung in the back closet, folded carefully, proof that pretending ends the moment truth speaks louder. I took it out, held it once, then laid it across the garden soil. In the morning, dew beaded along its edge like pearls. I let the wind carry it where it would. Autumn brought small, ordinary joys. Apple pie, new curtains, Owen laughing again. Life stitched itself back together. Imperfect, but sturdy. One evening, he brought someone new, a quiet woman named Iris. Eyes soft, hands calloused from real work. She shook my hand firmly. I've heard about your garden, she said later, when they left. I stood among the rosemary and felt something ease in my chest. Some roots survive any storm. A week after their visit, a final letter arrived, not from Clara, but from her lawyer. A brief note. She'd forfeited all claims and left the country. No forwarding address. No more threats. I placed the letter in the same drawer as the old folder. then locked it and tucked the key behind Arthur's photo again. As I turned away, sunlight caught the frame, and for the first time in months, I smiled without forcing it. That night, Owen called. She asked if she could help you in the garden sometime. He said, "I'd like that," I replied. He paused. "You okay, Mom?" I looked out the window where the rosemary swayed, stubborn and green. "Yes," I said. "I think we're both finally okay." The house settled around me. The quiet, no longer heavy, but kind. I brewed tea, set 2 cups on the table, one for me, one for memory, and watched the steam rise like forgiveness outside. The wind shifted east, carrying the scent of salt and new beginnings. I closed the curtain, not to hide, but to rest. And that was how it ended. Not with noise, but with peace.